November rain carved silver scars across Riverdale's forgotten streets. Owen Brooks locked his auto shop, 50 crumpled dollars burning a hole in his jacket. Harper's milk money, maybe eggs if he was lucky. The ancient key turned with a final click. Then it hit him. Soft weeping, almost lost beneath the storm's fury. She materialized from the shadows like a broken angel, early 20s, golden hair plastered to porcelain cheeks, mascara rivers painting her pain. $1,000 coat clung to her trembling shoulders like wet silk. Her iPhone screamed with incoming calls. Alexander Sterling. Private. Again. Again. She killed each one with desperate fingers. Please. Her voice shattered the night like crystal on concrete. Just one night. I have nowhere else to go. Owen's calloused hands froze on his truck handle. Those ocean blue eyes held secrets that could destroy kingdoms. This struggling father had no idea he was staring at an empire's missing heir. Owen's weathered Ford pickup coughed to life, windshield wipers battling the relentless downpour. The girl Isabelle, she'd whispered, sat rigid against the passenger door, arms wrapped around herself like armor. Her breathing came in sharp, shallow bursts. The radio crackled with static before Owen switched it off. Silence filled the cab except for rain drumming on metal and her occasional sniffles. She clutched that leather purse against her chest like it contained her soul. Every few blocks, her phone buzzed. Each time she'd glance at the screen, her face cycling through terror, anger, then resignation. Owen watched from his peripheral vision, noting how she flinched at every passing headlight. This wasn't just some college kid who'd partied too hard. This was someone running from something big. The trailer park squatted in Riverdale's forgotten corner, a collection of rusted dreams and broken promises. Owen's double-wide sat at the end of Elm Street, its aluminum siding streaked with years of Ohio weather. A single porch light flickered like a dying firefly. As they pulled up, Owen killed the engine and turned to face his passenger. Listen, I've got an 8-year-old daughter sleeping inside. Whatever trouble you're running from, I need to know it won't follow you here. Isabelle's fingers tightened around her purse straps. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. I would never hurt a child. I need 12 hours to figure out my next move. Owen studied her face in the dashboard's green glow. Something about the way she said 12 hours, so precise, so calculated made his mechanic's instincts twinge. But those tears were real enough. The trailer's interior hit Isabelle like a gentle slap of reality. Mismatched furniture arranged with care, family photos taped to walls, the lingering scent of macaroni and cheese mixed with motor oil. Owen moved with practiced quiet, hanging his jacket on a bent wire hanger, kicking off steel-toed boots by the door. Everything screamed paycheck to paycheck, but nothing screamed dirty or neglected. A child's drawing of stick figures holding hands was magneted to the refrigerator, "Me and Daddy," scrawled in purple crayon. Isabelle's throat tightened. She'd grown up in rooms larger than this entire home, surrounded by Persian rugs worth more than Owen probably made in a year. Yet she'd never felt the warmth that radiated from these cramped walls. Couch pulls out, Owen whispered, tossing her a clean towel. Bathroom's down the hall. Harper sleeps like the dead, but try to keep it quiet. He paused at his bedroom door. And Isabelle? Tomorrow, we talk. Morning crept through thin curtains like an unwelcome guest. Isabelle woke to the sound of small feet pattering across linoleum and the smell of coffee brewing in a machine that had seen better decades. She'd slept maybe 3 hours, jolting awake every time a car passed or the wind rattled the windows. Her phone showed 17 missed calls and 43 text messages, all from the same 3 numbers. She powered it off without reading them. Through the kitchen doorway she caught sight of a little girl with Owen's dark hair and serious eyes, carefully buttering toast with the concentration of a surgeon. Harper Brooks, 8 years old, wearing pajamas with faded unicorns and mismatched socks. The child glanced up and spotted Isabelle, freezing mid-butter like a deer caught in headlights. "Daddy," Harper whispered urgently, "there's a pretty lady on our couch." Owen appeared in the doorway, hair still rumpled from sleep, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt that had been washed to softness. "Harper, this is Isabelle. She needed a safe place to stay last night." His daughter studied their visitor with the unblinking intensity that only children possessed. Isabelle sat up slowly, suddenly aware of how she must look. Designer clothes wrinkled beyond recognition, makeup smeared, hair resembling a bird's nest. But Harper's expression wasn't judgmental. It was curious, concerned even. "Are you sad?" the little girl asked with devastating directness. "Your eyes look like mine when I cry." Isabelle's chest constricted. When was the last time someone had asked her about her feelings without wanting something in return? "A little sad," she admitted, "but better now." Harper nodded gravely, as if this made perfect sense. Then she did something that shattered Isabelle's composure completely. She walked over and held out half her toast. "Daddy says sharing makes everything taste better." The kitchen table wobbled slightly when Owen set down 3 mismatched mugs of coffee, 2 regular, 1 with extra sugar for Harper. Isabelle wrapped her fingers around the ceramic warmth, inhaling the cheap but honest brew. No imported beans, no French press, no pretentious barista art, just coffee that tasted like comfort and necessity. Harper chattered between bites of toast, telling Isabelle about school, about her friend Megan, who had 2 different colored socks on purpose, about the book report she had to write on Charlotte's Web. Normal 8-year-old concerns that felt revolutionary after 22 years of boarding school politics and social climbing. Owen listened to his daughter with the focused attention of someone who had no choice but to be present. No phone calls interrupted breakfast, no assistants whispered urgent updates in his ear. When Harper asked if she could show Isabelle her room, Owen just smiled and nodded. "5 minutes, princess. Then we need to get you ready for school." Harper's room was a masterclass in creative poverty. The twin bed was made with military precision, stuffed animals arranged by size along the pillow. Drawings covered every available wall space. Horses, rainbows, houses with smoke curling from chimneys. A wooden desk painted bright yellow held pencils in a coffee can and a small stack of library books. "I painted that myself," Harper said proudly, pointing to the desk. "Daddy let me pick the color. He said yellow was like sunshine inside." Isabelle knelt beside a bookshelf made from concrete blocks and salvaged wood. Every book was a library checkout, spines worn from multiple readings. No leather-bound first editions, no designer bookends, just stories loved into exhaustion. "Do you like to read?" Harper asked, settling cross-legged on her bed. "I love books. They take you places you can't go in real life." Isabelle's throat closed. This child had no idea she was describing exactly what Isabelle had been searching for her entire life. An escape from a reality that felt more like an elaborate prison. After Harper left for school, backpack patched with duct tape, lunch packed in a reused grocery bag, The trailer fell into profound quiet. Owen poured himself another cup of coffee and studied Isabelle across the small table. She'd borrowed one of his old Carhartt shirts, sleeves rolled up to reveal wrists that had never known manual labor. Her phone sat silent beside her mug, finally powered down. "So," Owen said, voice gentle but firm, "want to tell me why someone with $1,000 coat is sleeping on my couch?" Isabelle's laugh held no humor. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." She traced the rim of her mug with one finger. "Let's just say I'm taking a break from family expectations." Owen had grown up poor enough to recognize wealth when he saw it. The cut of her clothes, the way she held herself, even unconscious, everything screamed money. Big money. "Family expectations," he repeated. "The kind that involve private security and 17 missed calls." Isabelle's composure cracked like ice under pressure. "My father thinks he owns me. Every decision, every friendship, every breath I take, it all has to serve his vision of who I should be." Her hands shook as she lifted the mug. "2 nights ago I was supposed to marry a man I've met exactly 3 times. A senator's son who sees me as a business merger with reproductive potential." Owen's coffee turned to acid in his stomach. He'd heard about arranged marriages in other cultures, other countries. Never imagined it happening in modern America to someone who could afford to refuse. "So you ran?" It wasn't a question. "I ran," she confirmed. "Got 3 blocks from the church in my wedding dress before I realized I had nowhere to go. No friends who aren't on my father's payroll. No money that isn't tied to trust funds and family accounts." She laughed bitterly. 22 years old, and I don't even have a credit card in my own name." The revelation hung between them like a bridge neither quite dared to cross. Owen refilled their mugs, buying time to process. He'd imagined drug dealers, abusive boyfriends, maybe credit card debt, not modern-day feudalism disguised as high society. "This father of yours," he said carefully, "he's got the kind of resources to track you down?" Isabelle's nod was barely perceptible. "Alexander Sterling owns half the manufacturing in Ohio. The other half he has controlling interest in." Owen's blood chilled. Sterling Industries. He'd done contract work for their subsidiaries, fixed their fleet vehicles. Those people didn't just have money, they had power. Influence. The kind that could make a small-town mechanic disappear without a trace. "Jesus Christ, Isabelle, you're that Sterling!" Her silence was confirmation enough. "And you brought this to my door." To Harper's door. For the first time since finding her in the rain, Owen felt the cold finger of fear trace his spine. But even as fear whispered warnings in his ear, Owen watched Isabelle curl into herself like a wounded animal. This wasn't some spoiled rich girl playing at rebellion. This was someone drowning in expectations and desperate for a single breath of authentic air. "I should go," she whispered. "I shouldn't have involved you. I've never met anyone who expected nothing from me." Owen thought about Harper's easy generosity with her toast, the way she'd offered friendship without agenda. His daughter had inherited his instinct for wounded things, apparently. "Where exactly would you go?" he asked. "Back to Daddy's mansion? To that senator's son?" Isabelle's laugh was hollow. "There's a train station in Columbus. From there, maybe Chicago. Portland. Somewhere big enough to disappear." Owen studied her face, pale, exhausted, but determined. She reminded him of himself at 19, choosing homelessness over his stepfather's fists. Sometimes running was the only option left, but sometimes, if you were lucky, Someone threw you a lifeline. The decision crystallized in Owen's chest like cold certainty. You can stay until you figure out your next move. Isabel's head snapped up, hope and disbelief warring in her expression. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Owen's voice carried the weight of someone who'd learned that kindness was often the only currency that mattered. But I need ground rules. No contact with your family while you're under this roof. Harper comes first in every decision, and if trouble shows up at my door, you're gone. No discussion. Isabelle nodded rapidly, tears spilling over her cheeks. I understand. Thank you. I'll find a way to pay you back. Owen waved away her gratitude. Just help with Harper when you can. And maybe you can show her that there's more to life than what she can see from this trailer park. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility and danger in equal measure. 3 days passed in a rhythm Owen hadn't expected. Isabelle proved surprisingly adaptable to trailer life, helping with meals, listening to Harper's endless chatter about school, even attempting to fix a leaky faucet with more enthusiasm than skill. She had the focused attention of someone discovering ordinary life for the first time. Watching Harper demonstrate how to make chocolate chip cookies from scratch, Isabelle took notes like she was studying for finals. I've never actually cooked, she admitted, flour dusting her borrowed clothes. Private chefs, boarding school cafeterias, catered events. Harper giggled. How did you eat when you were little? The question landed like a stone in still water. Isabel's smile faltered. Very carefully, she said quietly. With the right fork, at the right time, talking about the right things. Harper, with the brutal wisdom of childhood, patted Isabel's arm. That sounds lonely. But beneath Isabel's careful integration into their routine, tension simmered like water about to boil. Her phone, now permanently off, seemed to mock her from whatever drawer she'd hidden it in. When cars passed too slowly or unfamiliar voices carried from neighboring trailers, she'd freeze until the moment passed. Owen noticed everything. The way she positioned herself near exits, how she flinched at loud noises, the careful way she parceled out information about herself, as if every detail was currency she couldn't afford to spend. He'd worked enough domestic violence cases, friends, neighbors, Harper's teachers to recognize the signs. But this felt different, bigger, like waiting for a storm that hadn't decided which direction to break. You're safe here, he told her on the 4th evening as they cleaned dinner dishes. I know, she replied, but her eyes kept drifting toward the windows. The calm shattered on Thursday afternoon with the precision of a sledgehammer through glass. Owen was under the hood of Mrs. Patterson's Buick when his phone rang. Unknown number. His gut twisted even before he answered. Owen Brooks? The voice was cultured, controlled, dangerous in its politeness. My name is Alexander Sterling. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Owen's wrench slipped, scraping knuckles against the engine block. Blood mixed with motor oil as he straightened. I don't know what you're talking about. A dry chuckle. Mr. Brooks, I have security footage of my daughter getting into your vehicle Tuesday night. I'm not calling to threaten you yet. I'm calling to negotiate her return. The parking lot seemed to tilt beneath Owen's feet. Sterling knew where Isabelle was. Had probably known since the first night, which meant he'd been watching, waiting, planning. She's an adult, Owen managed. She can make her own choices. Can she? That's debatable. The line went dead, leaving Owen staring at his phone like it might bite him. Around the shop, life continued its normal rhythm, customers dropping off keys, mechanics cursing at stubborn bolts, the coffee pot gurgling in the corner office. But Owen felt like he was watching it all from underwater. Alexander Sterling wasn't just wealthy, he was connected. The kind of connected that could ruin lives with a phone call. Make problems disappear. Make people disappear. Owen's hands shook as he gathered his tools. Harper would be home from school in 2 hours. Isabelle was probably helping her with homework, or listening to another story about playground drama, or teaching her some obscure fact about art history. Normal things that suddenly felt precious and fragile. By the time Owen reached his truck, he'd made his decision. Some battles you could win through stubbornness and determination. Others required strategic retreat. And some required you to choose which casualties you could live with. The trailer felt different when Owen walked through the door charged with an electricity that made his skin crawl. Isabelle sat at the kitchen table with Harper, helping with math homework. But her posture screamed alert. Every muscle coiled for flight. Harper looked up with her usual sunny smile. "Daddy." Isabelle taught me about fractions using pizza slices. "Can we have pizza for dinner?" Owen forced his face into neutral territory. "Sure, princess." "Why don't you go play in your room for a bit? I need to talk to Isabelle." Something in his tone made Harper's smile falter, but she gathered her books without argument. The moment her bedroom door closed, Isabelle spoke without looking up. "He called you." It wasn't a question. Owen sank into the chair across from her, suddenly feeling every one of his 32 years. "How did you know?" "Because you look like someone just told you the world was ending." Isabelle's laugh held broken glass. "Welcome to life as Alexander Sterling's daughter." Owen leaned forward, voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "He's not just rich, is he? This isn't just about Daddy's money and family reputation." Isabelle's fingers traced the wood grain of the table like she was reading Braille. "Sterling Industries has contracts with half the politicians in Ohio. The other half he owns outright through campaign contributions. The governor's daughter went to school with me. The attorney general plays golf with my father every Wednesday." Each revelation hit Owen like a physical blow. "And you thought running away would work? How exactly?" "I thought I'd have more time," Isabelle admitted. "I thought he'd write me off as an embarrassment, let me disappear quietly rather than risk scandal." She finally looked up, and Owen saw his own fear reflected in her eyes. "I never imagined he'd involve innocent people." "I'm so sorry, Owen. I'm so sorry." The weight of her apology settled in his chest like lead. Because now he had to choose between saving himself and Harper, or standing up to a man who could destroy them both without breaking stride. That evening passed in a surreal calm, like the eye of a hurricane. Harper chattered through dinner, oblivious to the tension crackling between the adults. Isabelle helped with bath time, reading Charlotte's Web in voices that made Harper giggle until she got hiccups. Owen watched from the doorway, memorizing the sound of his daughter's laughter mixing with a stranger's kindness. After Harper fell asleep, he and Isabelle sat on the front steps, sharing a beer and watching stars appear between racing clouds. "Tell me about your mother," Owen said finally. Isabelle was quiet so long he thought she wouldn't answer. "She was beautiful. Kind. Everything Father loved about her, right up until the cancer took it away." Her voice carried the weight of old grief. "She used to sneak into my room at night, tell me stories about normal families who went grocery shopping together and fought over television channels. I think she knew what kind of life I was headed for." Owen thought about his own mother, gone since Harper was 3. How she'd have handled this mess with characteristic directness, probably with a baseball bat and colorful language. After she died, everything changed. Isabelle continued. Father stopped seeing me as his daughter and started seeing me as her replacement. Someone to carry on the family legacy, produce the next generation of Sterlings, look beautiful at charity galas. She took a long pull from her beer. The engagement to Crawford's son was just the final piece. A political alliance disguised as romance. Owen studied her profile in the porch light, sharp cheekbones, determined jaw, eyes that held depths he was only beginning to understand. And if you go back, I become exactly what he wants. The perfect daughter, the perfect wife, the perfect Sterling woman. She turned to face him fully. But if I don't go back, he'll destroy you. Your business, your reputation, maybe your custody of Harper. Men like my father don't lose, Owen. They just change the game until losing becomes impossible. The truth hung between them like a sword waiting to fall. Morning arrived grey and oppressive, heavy with unspoken decisions. Owen woke to find Isabelle already in the kitchen, fully dressed, hair pulled back in a perfect chignon that belonged more to boardrooms than trailer parks. Her borrowed clothes had been replaced by the designer outfit she'd worn that first night, now cleaned and pressed to crisp perfection. The transformation was jarring, like watching Cinderella in reverse. You're leaving, Owen said. It wasn't a question. Isabelle poured coffee with hands steady as stone. A car will pick me up in an hour. Her voice carried the flat effect of someone who'd practiced this conversation. I called him this morning. Told him I was ready to come home, ready to fulfill my obligations. Owen's coffee turned to ash in his mouth. Just like that? Just like that. But when she turned to face him, her eyes told a different story. Red-rimmed, devastated, but resolute. It's better this way, Owen. Cleaner, you and Harper can go back to your normal lives without looking over your shoulders. Harper chose that moment to stumble into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from her eyes and trailing her favorite stuffed elephant. She took one look at Isabelle's formal attire and froze. Are you going away? The question hit the room like a physical force. Isabelle knelt to Harper's eye level, her perfect composure cracking around the edges. I have to go home, sweetheart. My family needs me. Harper's lower lip trembled. But what about teaching me more about fractions? And we were going to make cookies again, and you promised to show me how to draw horses like real artists do. Each word was a knife twist in Isabelle's chest. Owen watched her struggle against tears, watched her rebuild her walls in real time. Maybe someone else can teach you those things, Isabelle managed. Harper's face crumpled with the brutal honesty of childhood disappointment. But I don't want someone else. I want you. She threw her arms around Isabelle's neck with desperate intensity. Please don't go. Please stay with me and Daddy. The embrace lasted exactly 10 seconds before Isabelle gently extracted herself, standing with the mechanical precision of someone operating on pure willpower. I have to go, she repeated, but her voice broke on the last word. Owen stepped forward, one hand on Harper's shoulder, the other reaching instinctively toward Isabelle before dropping to his side. This doesn't feel like giving up, he said quietly. This feels like giving in. Isabelle's laugh was hollow. Sometimes they're the same thing. Outside, a black town car pulled into the trailer park, looking as out of place as a shark in a swimming pool. The driver stayed behind the wheel, but Owen could see the outline of at least one passenger in the back seat. Reinforcements. Insurance. The message was clear. Isabelle's departure wasn't a request. It was a foregone conclusion. Harper pressed closer to Owen's side, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Daddy, make her stay. Please make her stay." Owen's heart shattered at his daughter's plea, knowing it was exactly what he wanted to do and exactly what he couldn't do. Isabelle gathered her purse, the same leather bag she'd clutched that first night, and walked toward the door with footsteps that echoed like a funeral march. At the threshold, she paused without turning around. "Thank you," she said, voice barely audible, "for showing me what normal feels like, for letting me pretend, just for a few days, that I could be someone different." Owen wanted to say something profound, something that would change her mind, or at least let her know how much these 5 days had meant to him too. Instead, he managed only, "Take care of yourself, Isabelle Sterling." She flinched at the use of her full name, but didn't correct him. The door closed behind her with devastating finality. Through the window, Owen watched her walk to the town car with perfect posture, watched her slide into the back seat next to a man in an expensive suit who could only be her father. The car pulled away without haste, disappearing into Riverdale's grey morning like it had never existed at all. For 3 weeks, life returned to its previous rhythm. Owen fixed cars, Harper went to school, they shared simple dinners and watched Disney movies on Friday nights. But the trailer felt hollow now, echoing with phantom laughter and half-finished conversations. Harper asked about Isabelle constantly for the first week, then sporadically, then not at all, the resilient way children learn to accept loss. Owen found himself checking the news obsessively, searching for mentions of Sterling Industries, engagement announcements, society weddings. Nothing. As if Isabelle Sterling had vanished back into her gilded cage without leaving a ripple. He told himself this was what he'd wanted. His daughter safe. His life simple. No complications that could destroy everything he'd built. But late at night, when Harper was asleep and the trailer settled into its familiar creaks and sighs, Owen found himself thinking about ocean blue eyes and the sound of genuine laughter in his kitchen. The disruption came on a Tuesday morning with the subtlety of an earthquake. Owen arrived at the shop to find 3 men in suits waiting by the entrance, not threatening exactly, but carrying the kind of authority that made smart people nervous. The leader, a silver-haired man with Isabelle's eyes and a smile sharp enough to cut glass, extended a manicured hand. "Mr. Brooks, Alexander Sterling, I believe we have some business to discuss." Owen's blood turned to ice water, but he shook the offered hand with steady grip. "Mr. Sterling, didn't expect to see you in person. I find personal touches more effective than phone calls." Sterling's voice held the casual confidence of someone accustomed to being the most powerful person in any room, particularly when discussing matters of mutual interest. The other 2 men bodyguards, lawyers, enforcers, Owen couldn't tell which, flanked their boss with the synchronization of long practice. "What kind of matters?" Owen asked, proud that his voice stayed level. Sterling gestured toward the shop's interior with the presumption of someone who'd never been refused anything. "May we?" It wasn't really a question. Inside, Sterling examined Owen's workspace with the focus of a general surveying a battlefield. Clean, organized, professional, despite its humble scale. "You do good work, Mr. Brooks. I've had my people look into your operation. Stellar reputation, loyal customers, honest pricing." He picked up a wrench from Owen's tool bench, weighing it in his palm like he was testing its worth. "It would be a shame if circumstances forced you to close down." The threat was delivered with such casual politeness that it took Owen's brain a moment to process the words. "Circumstances," he repeated. "What kind of circumstances?" Sterling set down the wrench with deliberate care. "The kind that involve harboring fugitive family members. Identity theft. My daughter used false names while staying with you, contributing to the delinquency of a minor since she's still under family guardianship until she turns 25. Each accusation landed like a physical blow. Owen's vision tunneled. She's 22 years old. Chronologically, yes, but legally speaking, things become complicated when mental health comes into play. Sterling's smile never wavered, but his eyes turned arctic. "My daughter has been under psychiatric care since her mother's death. Trauma, you understand. Delusions of persecution, paranoid fantasies about arranged marriages, and family coercion." The words hit Owen like a sledgehammer to the chest. Mental health commitments, legal guardianship. Suddenly, Isabelle's fear made terrifying sense. Her breakdown at the engagement party was quite public. Sterling continued, screaming about imaginary threats, accusing her fiancé of unpleasant things. The papers were sealed, of course, but medical records don't lie. Owen's hands clenched into fists at his sides. And if someone were to believe her version of events, then that someone would be interfering with medical treatment of a mentally ill woman, contributing to her delusions, possibly facing charges of their own. Sterling straightened his tie with the satisfaction of a chess master announcing checkmate. "I trust you understand the position you're in, Mr. Brooks." The shop fell into silence, broken only by the distant hum of traffic and Owen's own thundering heartbeat. Every instinct screamed at him to grab Sterling by his silk tie and demand the truth. But Harper's face floated in his mind, trusting innocent Harper, who depended on him for everything. "What do you want?" Owen asked finally. Sterling's smile widened. "I want you to forget my daughter was ever here. I want you to go back to your simple life, raise your child, fix your cars. I want you to understand that Isabelle is exactly where she belongs, getting the help she needs." And he paused at the shop's entrance, sunlight catching the silver in his hair. "And in return, I'll make sure your business prospers. New contracts, referrals from my associates, perhaps even expansion opportunities. The carrot after the stick. Classic manipulation tactics that made Owen's skin crawl. And if I refuse, then you'll discover that crossing Alexander Sterling was the worst mistake of your very short life." The words hung in the air like poison gas as Sterling and his entourage disappeared into their waiting vehicles. That evening, Owen sat at his kitchen table with a beer growing warm between his hands and a stack of bills that seemed to mock him from across the room. Harper was at her friend Megan's house for a sleepover, leaving Owen alone with his thoughts and the weight of impossible choices. Sterling's offer played on repeat in his mind. Financial security for silence, prosperity for betrayal. He could take the deal, provide for Harper's future, maybe even save enough for college. All he had to do was forget 5 days that had felt more real than anything he'd experienced in years. Forget Isabelle's laughter in his kitchen, her gentle patience with Harper's endless questions, the way she'd looked at their simple life like it was something precious and rare. Forget the terror in her eyes when she'd described her father's control, the resigned desperation when she'd chosen to go back rather than endanger them. Forget everything except the official story, a mentally ill woman who'd needed to come home for treatment. But Owen Brooks had grown up on the wrong side of every power structure that mattered. He'd learned early that when rich people said mentally ill, they often meant inconveniently honest. When they said family guardianship, they meant legal imprisonment. When they offered prosperity in exchange for silence, they were admitting there was something worth being silent about. The beer finally found its way to his lips, bitter and flat, but real in a way that Sterling's polished threats weren't. Owen thought about his daughter, sleeping safely at a friend's house, dreaming about homework and horses and all the normal problems of childhood. He thought about Isabelle, somewhere in a mansion that felt more like a prison, perhaps staring out windows she couldn't open at a world she couldn't reach. And he thought about the man he wanted to be versus the man circumstances were forcing him to become. Some choices, once made, echoed through every day that followed. This felt like one of those choices. The decision crystallized slowly, like ice forming over still water. Owen finished his beer, set the empty bottle aside, and pulled out his phone. Not to call Sterling, that bridge had been burned the moment threats entered the conversation. Instead, he scrolled through his contacts until he found the name he was looking for. Caleb Rodriguez answered on the second ring. Owen? It's almost midnight, man. Everything okay? Owen's throat felt lined with sandpaper. Caleb, I need a favor, a big one. And if you help me, it might cause you problems with some very powerful people. A pause. Then Caleb's voice came back, steady and sure. What kind of problems we talking about? Owen closed his eyes, visualizing the point of no return rushing toward him like a freight train. The kind that could cost us both everything we've built. Another pause, longer this time. When Caleb spoke again, there was steel in his voice. Brother, if someone's threatening you and Harper, then they just made an enemy they can't afford. Tell me what you need. 3 days of careful planning followed. Caleb proved invaluable. His network of contacts included everyone from sympathetic cops to investigative journalists hungry for stories about corruption in high places. Owen learned that Alexander Sterling's version of medical treatment involved a private facility in upstate New York, the kind that specialized in keeping inconvenient rich people sedated and compliant. He learned that Isabelle's breakdown at the engagement party had been caught on cell phone video by several guests, though those videos had mysteriously disappeared from social media within hours. Most importantly, he learned that he wasn't the first person Sterling had silenced with threats and bribes. There was a pattern stretching back years, business partners who'd asked inconvenient questions, employees who'd witnessed illegal activities, even family members who'd tried to speak out. All of them had been neutralized through Sterling's combination of legal manipulation, financial pressure, and strategic character assassination. The system was elegant, efficient, and completely ruthless. But systems built on fear and silence had one critical weakness. They collapsed the moment someone refused to stay quiet. Owen spent Thursday night typing at his kitchen table, drafting a story that laid out everything he knew about Isabelle Sterling's situation. Not speculation or accusations, just facts. The arranged marriage, the coercive tactics, the legal guardianship used as a weapon, the pattern of silencing anyone who might expose the truth. He wrote about 5 days of watching a young woman discover joy in simple things, about the genuine kindness she'd shown his daughter, about the terror in her eyes when she'd chosen captivity over endangering others. When he finished, the document was 12 pages long and contained enough verifiable information to end Alexander Sterling's career and possibly his freedom. Owen read it twice, checking for accuracy, then saved multiple copies to different locations. Tomorrow, copies would go to journalists, law enforcement, civil rights attorneys, and anyone else with the power to act on the information. Friday morning dawned cold and clear, the kind of October day that promised winter wasn't far behind. Owen dropped Harper at school with extra hugs and the kind of careful attention that made her give him worried looks. "Are you sad about something, Daddy?" she asked as they stood outside her classroom. Owen knelt to her eye level, memorizing her serious expression and the way morning light caught gold highlights in her dark hair. "Just thinking about some grown-up stuff, Princess. But you know I love you more than anything in the world, right?" Harper nodded solemnly. "Even more than chocolate chip cookies?" "Even more than chocolate chip cookies." She giggled and threw her arms around his neck. "I love you too, Daddy." "Even more than unicorns." Owen held her tight, breathing in the scent of strawberry shampoo and childhood innocence. In a few hours, their quiet life would explode into something unrecognizable. But this moment, this perfect ordinary moment, belonged to them forever. The first email went out at 9 a.m. sharp. By noon, Owen's phone was ringing constantly. Reporters, lawyers, Sterling's representatives, and people he'd never heard of, but who claimed to have information about similar situations. The story had legs, spreading through social media faster than Sterling's damage control team could contain it. Owen watched the chaos unfold from his shop, continuing to work on Mrs. Patterson's Buick while his phone buzzed with missed calls and urgent texts. Around 2 p.m., the first news van pulled up outside. By 4, there were 6 vehicles lined up along the street, reporters doing live broadcasts about the explosive allegations against one of Ohio's most powerful families. Owen fielded exactly 1 interview, keeping his responses factual and measured, refusing to be drawn into speculation or inflammatory language. He was, he told the cameras, simply a man who'd witnessed something wrong and couldn't stay silent about it. The retaliation came swift and vicious, exactly as Owen had expected. By Friday evening, the health department was scheduling an emergency inspection of his shop. The IRS had questions about his tax filings going back 3 years. Child Protective Services received an anonymous report about Harper's living conditions. Sterling's lawyers filed a restraining order claiming Owen was harassing their client with malicious falsehoods. Each attack was professionally executed and legally defensible, designed to overwhelm him with bureaucratic nightmares while slowly destroying his credibility. But Owen had prepared for this too. Caleb and their network of contacts had assembled a legal defense team pro bono, civil rights attorneys who specialized in David versus Goliath cases and relished the chance to take on Sterling Industries. The story had captured public attention in ways Sterling couldn't control. Social media campaigns demanding Isabelle's freedom, protests outside Sterling corporate headquarters, congressional representatives calling for investigations into abuse of conservatorship laws. Sunday brought the breakthrough Owen had been praying for. A nurse from the upstate facility where Isabelle was being held came forward with records proving she was being forcibly medicated against her will. Security footage showed her attempting to make phone calls that were blocked by staff. Most damning of all, recorded conversations between Alexander Sterling and the facility's director revealed explicit instructions to keep Isabelle compliant and quiet, regardless of her actual mental state. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, and broadcast across every major news network by evening. Sterling's empire began crumbling with stunning speedstock prices plummeted. Government contracts were suspended pending investigation. and federal prosecutors announced they were opening a criminal probe into his business practices. More importantly for Owen, a federal judge issued an emergency order for Isabelle's immediate release from the facility and the dissolution of her father's guardianship. She was free. The knock on Owen's door came Tuesday evening, soft and hesitant, like someone afraid to disturb the peace. Harper was in her room, ostensibly doing homework but actually reading ahead in Charlotte's Web. Owen had been washing dishes, trying to process the surreal reality that his normal life had become national news. He opened the door expecting another reporter, or perhaps one of Sterling's lawyers with a final attempt at negotiation. Instead, he found Isabelle standing on his small porch, wearing jeans and a simple sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders, looking more like the woman who'd helped his daughter with fractions than the heiress who'd dominated headlines all week. "Hi," she said quietly. "I hope it's okay that I came." "I tried to call, but your number's been disconnected." Owen's throat constricted. He'd changed phones twice since Friday, trying to escape the constant media attention. "It's more than okay." "Come in, please." Harper's shriek of delight when she spotted Isabelle could probably be heard 3 trailers away. She launched herself across the living room like a small missile, wrapping around Isabelle's waist with the desperate intensity of someone retrieving something precious they'd thought was lost forever. "You came back. You came back. I knew you would." Isabelle knelt to Harper's eye level, tears streaming down her cheeks as she held the little girl close. "I promised I'd teach you to draw horses, didn't I?" Harper nodded enthusiastically, chattering about everything that had happened while Isabelle was away, school projects, playground drama. The reporters who'd been asking questions about the pretty lady who stayed with us. Owen watched the reunion from the kitchen doorway, his own eyes burning with relief and something deeper he wasn't quite ready to name. This felt right in a way that transcended logic or caution, like pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. Later, after Harper had fallen asleep between them on the couch during a movie neither adult was watching, Owen and Isabelle sat in comfortable silence. The trailer felt complete again, filled with the warmth that had been missing for weeks. "Thank you," Isabelle said finally, "for risking everything to tell the truth. I never imagined someone would actually fight for me." Owen studied her profile in the television's flickering light. She looked different, still beautiful, but with a kind of peace he hadn't seen before, like someone who'd been holding her breath for 22 years and could finally exhale. "You saved yourself," he said. "I just turned on some lights." She turned to face him fully, and Owen saw a question in her eyes that made his pulse quicken. "What happens now?" she asked. "I have money, real money, now that the guardianship is dissolved. I could go anywhere, do anything." She paused, voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "But I keep thinking about this place, about the way Harper laughs when she's truly happy, about the way you make coffee that tastes like home." Owen felt the weight of possibility settling around them like snow. "This isn't exactly the life you were raised for," he said carefully. "Trailer parks and auto shops and 8-year-olds who use your good sweaters as paint smocks." Isabelle's laugh was warm and genuine. "No, it's not." "It's better." She reached out tentatively, covering his hand with hers. "I spent 22 years being what other people wanted me to be. For the first time in my life, I want to choose who I become." Owen felt his careful walls crumbling, built from years of protecting himself and Harper from disappointment and loss. But looking at Isabelle, really looking at her, he saw someone who understood the value of simple things because she'd lived without them. Someone who'd chosen his family over safety, over wealth, over everything her old life had offered. "Harper would love having you around," he said, voice rough with emotion. "And Harper's dad?" Isabelle asked softly. Owen lifted their joined hands, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "Harper's dad would love it too." 6 months later, Owen stood in the backyard of their new house. Not a mansion, but a real house with 3 bedrooms and a yard where Harper could plant the garden she'd been planning, watching his 2 favorite people paint a fence with more enthusiasm than skill. Isabelle had insisted on buying the house outright, but she'd chosen something modest, something that felt like a home rather than a statement. She'd also insisted on becoming an equal partner in the expanded auto shop, though her mechanical skills remained questionable at best. What she brought instead was business acumen, connections that opened doors to new contracts, and the kind of authentic enthusiasm for their work that turned customers into friends. Harper had adapted to their new normal with the resilience of childhood, though she still sometimes introduced Isabelle as "my dad's girlfriend, who used to be really rich but chose us instead," which never failed to make Isabelle laugh until she cried. The legal battles with Alexander Sterling continued, but from a distance that felt safely manageable. His criminal trial was scheduled for fall, and the civil suits Isabelle had filed were slowly working their way through the courts. She'd used her freedom and her resources to establish a foundation, helping other young people escape coercive family situations, turning her trauma into purpose. Owen watched her gesture animatedly as she explained something to Harper, paint streaking her cheek, hair escaping from its ponytail, looking nothing like the desperate girl who'd appeared in his life during a storm. She looked like someone who'd found her place in the world and intended to defend it with everything she had. Harper giggled at something Isabelle said, then noticed Owen watching and waved her paintbrush in greeting. "Daddy, come help. Isabelle says we can paint flowers on the fence, but I think we should paint horses." Owen walked toward them through grass that needed cutting and sunshine that felt like a benediction, thinking about the strange mathematics of love. How sometimes losing everything was the only way to find what you'd been missing all along. "Why not both?" he called back, rolling up his sleeves. "Flowers and horses. We've got plenty of fence." Isabelle met his eyes over Harper's head, her smile radiant with the kind of happiness that came from choosing your own life rather than inheriting someone else's dreams. "Plenty of fence," she agreed, "and plenty of time." Owen kissed the top of Harper's paint-streaked hair, then dropped a gentle kiss on Isabelle's temple, tasting sawdust and possibility and the salt of honest sweat. Around them, their imperfect, beautiful, chosen family continued the work of building something that would last, one painted board, one shared laugh, one ordinary, perfect moment at a time.